Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Squirtle Pay Dirt Pick'em Show. My name is Michael Swisher, sitting in for Andy Campbell, who unfortunately had a really bad incident today on the teacups at Disney World, so he couldn't join us. So I am your guest host for what appears to be the final show of the season. And once again, quite the esteemed panel joining us. Actually, I thought we had Tom Nelson joining us tonight, but I just realized we don't have Tom Nelson. So I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves. Mark, I'm going to start with you. And the hardest working man in OK Preps right now just finished a live show, did you not?
I did. We talked to all of the coaches in the championship games this weekend, and so really looking forward to the final weekend. You failed to add this is the highly controversial Squirtle Pick'em show, and that's not even with Jake in the panel. So we'll try to keep it as I guess as low key as possible tonight.
Yeah, we want to avoid controversy, but I'm going to get to some things here in just a bit. Coach Lynn Shackelford also joining us. Coach, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great. Happy to be here.
And let's see. I know I got Coach Justin Jones joining us, Brandon Tyler joining us, and Brian Smith. Am I missing anybody tonight?
I think that's it.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Again, for some reason, I thought we had Tom Nelson on joining us tonight, but the fewer the better. Before we get into this week's three final state championship games, let's do a quick recap of what happened last weekend. Of course, it was the majority of the state title games that took place, mostly in Edmond, a little bit over there in Bethany. We'll start in 6A1, huge surprise. Bixby defeated Jinx 49-21. That was a game that everybody picked Bixby to win. Anything stand out to you guys as the Spartans won their ninth state title and six in a row now? Anything stand out in that game?
Big effort from Cornell Goldsby. Had a kick return for a touchdown, and just it's remarkable what Bixby's done to win 74, I think, out of their last 75 games. We've had this argument all the time about, well, it's just the big schools and it's all population. To me, that is a factor, but it's not as much of a factor as great coaching and programs that are run well from top to bottom. I think Bixby strength and conditioning is something to be modeled after, and it just really defies any kind of logic that they can have that much success.
Yeah, the numbers also obviously plays a big role in that, but of course Bixby has built up to where it is in the numbers right now. But there's no denying the numbers play a huge role in that. 6A2, Muskogee 28, Stillwater 26, as the Roughers get their first title since 1986, 10th overall, so they return to the promised land there. But that was a game that I think you guys, the panel was kind of split on that one. So Muskogee is able to pull that one off 28-26 there.
How about the Muskogee having to stop 2-point conversions in back-to-back weeks under 30 seconds left to get it done? That game was really off the chart. Bert Ficklin is a good player. So that may have been the game of the weekend for all the state championships. But Muskogee hadn't won it since 1986 when they beat Booker T. So I'm sure all of the Roughers are fired up.
Class 5A, again, no surprise everybody took Carl Albert. I honestly thought this might be a little bit more of a game. Carl Albert beats Del City 35-14. Second in a row, 7 out of 8 for the Titans. But again, Carl Albert, everybody's pick going into the season. They lived up to the hype and got it done.
That game got away from them a little bit. Carl Albert did a tremendous job on defense. I think they held Del City under 80 yards rushing. Xavier Robinson's incredibly difficult to tackle, getting the ball to him in space or just handing it off to him between the tackles. I know Kevin Sperry rushed for 100 yards in the game. Del City's nothing to be ashamed of. It was a great season for them, going undefeated all the way to that game. And Carl Albert's now tied with Jinx, one away from Ada with 19 state championships. And most all of those have been since the late 80s.
Yeah, just knocking on that door. A game that started Thursday night, ended Friday morning. This one got you guys. The Blanchard Lions knock off Wagner 19-14. And it's kind of a reminiscent of, I think, a game earlier this year. Blanchard, the beneficiary of forcing a lot of turnovers or getting a lot of takeaways. The Lions, though, they get it done, knock off Wagner. Third title overall, first since 2012.
four interceptions in the game for Blanchard. So they really were. They took advantage of some of those mistakes. They did give up a kick return in that game, but Coach Craig really has usually had some great offenses. But this year the defense was really, really good. And so that's 2 wins for Jeff against Wagner. Ended their winning streak, and then was able to win in the championship game and dethrone them from the top spot in 4A.
It was a total game earlier this year where they forced like 6 turnovers and got that narrow win as well. So Blanchard gets it done in the big games with the defense. Saturday night, Class 3A, Lincoln Christian, its 3rd title, knocks off Heritage Hall 48-28. Of course, this is a game that Heritage Hall led by 3 touchdowns in the first half at one point. Of course, everybody, it's the what could have been game possibly, as Andy Bass tore his, as we found out, tore his ACL early in the second half. And just that big run by Lincoln Christian to win its 3rd title.
Andy Bass's stats from that game, are ridiculous for being injured in the second quarter. He rushed for 173. He had 300 yards or close to 300 yards of offense and 4 touchdowns before he tore his ACL. He's one of the more fascinating players that I've covered in Oklahoma high school football, to try to figure out where he's going to fit in at the next level. He's got incredible speed. He's big. I would think he's going to be an H-back or potentially a running back, but I think OU's got an underrated guy in Andy Bass.
And that's, kind of maybe kept us from having a similar game to last year. I think where they had the basketball score in that state championship game, them and Lincoln Christian. Had he stayed healthy, maybe we would have had another. I don't remember what last year's score was, but it seemed like it was in the 60s.
72-56. That was Metro, though, not Lincoln.
Oh, Metro. That's right. You're right. Exactly right. Metro Christian in that game right there. Class C again. This one did not stump you guys as Tipton runs away from Ryan 42-6. 9th title, 2nd in a row. Tipton just kind of the class of Class C.
Tipton's not going to go anywhere either. They have had a lot of freshmen kind of fill in late in the year. And by the end of that game, I talked to Travis White on Monday. He's playing 5 or 6 freshmen late in that game. So they're not going anywhere for a while.
Just an impressive run there, 42-6 for Tipton. So those are your state champions crowned last weekend. Now let's get into, first kind of, Coach Lynn Shackelford, you had a great week last week. I did some math, tallied it up for you. 3-5 a week ago. So
that sounds about right. I did take some flyers though.
Yeah.
It would have been easy to go all chalk, and I was close on a couple of them. I was 12 seconds away from the Kiefer Millwood game.
Exactly. Yeah. That would have evened your record, but you did. You went out on your own on a couple of those, or close to an island. Mark Rogers, I think you were 6-2 last week by my count. Coach Tyler 5-3. Coach Jones 6-2. Coach Smith 5-3. Last week, Tom Nelson, he was 5-2. He didn't pick the Class A game that he was calling. So there was a couple that stumped everybody last week, which is, that's what you want to see. You hope it's at least competitive and somebody can come up and surprise you. So now let's take a look at this week, and let's start with Class B in the 8-man. That's going to be at Southern Nazarene, 7:00 Friday night. It is going to be Sealing and Velma Alma. And, Sealing 14-0, made a deep run last year, of course, and then Velma Alma 13-1. We know that they've been very impressive after some would say skating by in the first round of the playoffs there. But let's start with you, Mark. Who are you picking to come out on top here in this Class B title game?
I'm going to go with Sealing in the game. I think making it to the championship game a year ago and then breezing through, and a lot of compliments for the Sealing team and how athletic they are. Not the biggest group, pretty scrappy. They were able to handle a team that has a lot of size last week in Regent Prep. Coach Smith, I'm sure, has got a lot more educated opinion about this game and what will happen. Haven't seen both of the teams in the finals matchup, but it should be a good one. And it's 2 really big-time programs, tradition rich, and I'm sure we'll have a great crowd at SNU coming up on Friday night.
Coach Tyler, what are you thinking?
Class B football. We're going to go with Velma Alma. Want to go against the grind, I guess, on this one. Like I said, I coached there at one time with Coach Gothard. back in the late '90s, and I know a lot of those guys still down that way. And I feel like they're playing pretty good right now. It seems like, and getting it all going at the right time. So I'm going to take them in this one.
Shaq.
Has Sealing won it since they've been 8-man?
No.
So these are both old school Class A powers that have dropped down.
88 was the last year for Sealing to win it. 94 the last year for Velma to win it.
88, but that was when Bruce was there, wasn't it?
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah. So I think it would be a cool game to go to. I mean, if you're not doing anything on Friday night, you could go down to SNU and watch that. I think there'll be the whole town of Sealing. Maybe even Gary England will go, and I think the whole town of Velma will probably be there too. It'd probably be a really cool atmosphere. Both of those towns and programs are tradition rich and probably dying for a state championship. But I think Sealing's got the best player. The Manuel kid that plays quarterback, I think, is an absolute freak show. And 8-man football, if you've got one of those and you got the best player on the field, you probably got a really good shot every Friday night. So I think it'll probably be close. I mean, Velma's played everybody close. They've scored points on everybody. But I think Sealing will pull it out in the end.
That's the first humble brag of the show tonight, knowing that Shaq won 4 championships at Morrison. So I think he's saying he was the best player on the field in all those games.
No, far from it. I just took the snap and handed it off. I was a lot like Bruce Harrell, state champ quarterback.
And never lost a game. Never lost a game either. 4 titles and never lost a game.
Yeah.
Coach Jones, no offense to you. I'm going to go to you next and save the expert for last in this one. So, Coach Jones, what are you thinking?
I think on this, I'm going to go with the experience. Sealing was there last year. I really liked watching the Manuel kid last year in the game, and I think experience matters this time of year. And I think they're hungry out there for a state championship. Obviously Velma's going to put up a fight, but I'm going to go with Sealing on this.
All right, and Coach Brian Smith.
Well, with Tom Nelson being gone, I guess I am the 8-man expert or whatever you want to call me. We played both these teams. We played them both late in the year, played Sealing week 9 and played Velma round 1 of the playoffs. Sealing is a very physical team, very good defensively. And all my years of coaching, I think Sealing is one of the top 10 or 15 teams I've ever coached against. And I've played against a lot of state championship teams. And I think that's something to be said. I don't really know where their weakness is. You talk to Coach Manuel, and he keeps wanting to downplay. Every time I talk to him, he wants to downplay his offensive and defensive line. I think he's saying that just to kind of sandbag, but they're very good. They're physical, they're fast, they get off the football and they play really hard. Velma, on the other hand, is very, very talented, especially at the skill positions, but their offensive and defensive line is good as well. Other than Sealing's 2-point win the other night against Regent, they've kind of skated through the playoffs fairly easily. They beat a really good Walika team in the quarterfinals, and they made short work of about everybody else. On the other hand, Velma has kind of always had to outscore people. They had to outscore us, kind of had to outscore Garber, had to outscore Drumright, and then they were not against O'Keene, beat him. I think the final score was 66-48. That's a lot of points. And I know 8-man football does that, but Sealing hasn't given up a lot of points this year, other than giving up the 40 to Regent. Going back to what Shackelford said, Caden Manuel is a stud. He is going to put that team on his shoulders, and they're going to follow him. And I've been picking Sealing all year long from the first of the year. They were runner-ups last year. I'm not changing that tonight for this pick. And my prediction is Sealing 48-20 over Velma.
Yeah, and that the 3 rounds leading up to last week's semifinal, Sealing had given up a total of 12 points. So
right,
that defense, and that's something I think Shackelford touched on that last week as well, that he thinks that at least Sealing does pride itself in a little bit of defense, and that very well could be the key. So majority of the crew tonight going with the Wildcats, and I talked to the girls coach, basketball coach Brady Hamer a few weeks ago, and he was telling me if they were able to find a way to get into the finals, that their boys were going to have maybe 1 or 2 games to get under their belts before they get to go play in that Mustang Holiday Classic against a bunch of large school basketball teams. So congratulations to the Wildcats. That's get your basketball shoes on and get ready to go play some 4A, 5A, 6A schools over in Mustang over the holiday break. And now the magic of editing, we are joined by Tom Nelson. I said at the top of the show, I thought we were going to be joined by Tom, who made 2 extra trips to the buffet and didn't join us in time to make it to the top of the show. Tom, thanks for joining us, just in time too.
You know what? I got so involved in watching the Thunder game. It's like I couldn't tear myself away. But yeah, glad to be here. Sorry about that.
We are discussing the Class B title game of pitting Sealing against Velma Alma. The majority of the panel is going with Sealing. So give us some insight and tell us what you think.
Well, it is the second matchup ever between these two teams. Sealing won the only matchup before 12-7 back in the 1996 playoffs. They were both playing 11-man back then. Sealing's 2-2 in the title game with championships in 1965 and 1988. And Velma Alma also a couple of championships in 1993 and 94 back-to-back. You know, Sealing made it all the way to the championship game a year ago. They lost to Laverne 34-28, and they were right there at the end of that ball game and came up short. And I guarantee you, they've had that chip on their shoulder all year long, and their return to the title game almost got derailed last week. They edged Regent Prep 42-40. We talked about Caden Manuel, and he got Sealing over the hump last week. 204 rushing yards, 151 passing yards, had a hand in 4 touchdowns. On the other side of the ball, he's the linebacker, had 12 and a half tackles, a sack and a half. Velma has given up a lot of points in the playoffs this year, 52 to Covington Douglas, 40 to Garber, 30 to Drumright, and 48 last week to O'Keene. So I think this is going to be a shootout, very entertaining at SNU, and I think that Sealing, I'll agree with everybody else, Sealing's going to get that 3rd gold ball in school history.
Almost everybody else, and I want to apologize to those watching for Tom rehashing basically what the rest of our panel has already pointed out with all of that information right there. But
I wasn't there.
I mean, you just repeated. I mean, everybody already said what you said. But thanks for that insight right there. And now, while we've got you, let's go over to Edmond on Saturday afternoon and play some Class A football. It is a rematch. It's Fairview and Hooker. And again, now I'm going to have to apologize again. When you have a JV host like you've had most of the year here on the Pay Dirt Pick'em show, they didn't really cover this game last week in the Pick'em show, and we're going to blame Andy for that. And I heard about it from some Hooker fans. Why didn't they talk about our game? So let's talk about this game this week, and let's give Hooker its due, because I tell you, they surprised a lot of people on this playoff run to get to this title game, playing for their first title ever. Meanwhile, Fairview going for its 4th and 2nd in a row. Tom, we'll start with you. What are you thinking on this one?
There's a lot of pride in District A1 in Northwest Oklahoma. These district mates are playing for the gold ball. They're very familiar with each other, of course. It was all Fairview back in September, and Hooker as the Jackets won that game 56-22. That night, Fairview racked up 575 total yards, and Jax Bernard threw for 422. Now, last week, Hooker shocked a lot of observers, knocking off Hominy 27-24. It was the Bulldogs D. They did enough to harass Hominy's Jackson Woods last week. The Bucks quarterback threw 3 interceptions. He was hurried 8 times. He was sacked once. And this week, the defense is going to face another Jackson that they will need similar results. Trevor Powers, head coach at Hooker, told me today that they've now faced both Jacksons. The one they played this week provides the bigger challenge, if you can read between the lines on what I'm saying there. Last week, Fairview forced 4 Woodland turnovers. We did that game on Squirtle. They turned 3 of them into scores. They also stopped the Cougars 4 times inside or very near the red zone, held them just 110 rushing yards. You know, Fairview's offense gets the pub, but the championships are won with the defense. For Hooker, Justin Palacios, a freshman, has rushed for 1,666 yards and 21 touchdowns. But it starts with the quarterback, and junior Cleet Martins has thrown and rushed for almost 2,500 yards and 27 touchdowns. Last week, Jax Bernard was very efficient, 19 of 23 for 266 yards and 3 touchdowns. Isaiah Burris went over 1,500 yards receiving, had 8 catches for 130 yards and a couple of touchdowns. Now, Coach Powers told me that they go in with a lot of confidence after last week. They're healthy. They know they can play with the Jackets, but Fairview brings that formidable and very familiar challenge. You know, one thing we do know, A1's going to be on center stage in the biggest game of the year. And I'm not going to make a pick on this because I'm going to be calling on the Squirtle audio feed, but that's going to be a good ball game, hopefully.
Yeah, I do want to let everybody know, if you haven't seen it on social media yet, Tom and Adam Dieselhorse will be doing an audio stream and a game cast. You can watch that on Squirtle.tv, Fairview Yellowjackets.tv, the Squirtle app. It'll be on the Facebook page. It'll be on the YouTube channel. And I believe all of the sports animal avenues as well. So lots of places to catch Tom and Adam on the call of that game if you can't be there at Chad Richardson Stadium. I've actually called a game at Hooker with Lane Jones, a former esteemed panelist on here. I believe it was Hennessy at Hooker, and we stopped on the way and ate at a Mexican restaurant in Beaver, and there was an Otasco in Beaver. That still sticks with me. One of the few remaining Otascos, and that might have been about 2008-ish.
Was that the old CTB 1640 Hennessy
Yes.
High School game of the week? Yeah,
It was, and Lane and I got back very early the next morning. We took a scenic route home, even from Hooker. Mark Rogers, what are you thinking from this one?
Yeah, Otasco's right across from King Cow Chip in downtown Beaver. But I mean, listen, I'm calling all three of these games, so I don't even know what I'm doing here. So Tom, we could probably squeeze a pick out of Tom on this one if we have to.
Fairview.
Okay. I think that Hooker is really to be commended for the way that they've bounced back this season. Talked with Coach Powers a little earlier tonight on our state championship preview show. They got a chip on their shoulder because they've just been run out of the gym both times that they've played Fairview. We called the game last year when I first had my first ever Mark Rogers bar, which was tremendous. And the legend is only growing with the great food provided by Miss Antoine there at Fairview. Jax Bernard is an incredible quarterback. Clete Martin's also pretty good. So I think that it's a little bit different challenge for Fairview than they faced the last couple of weeks, but they're also playing really good football right now. Justin and I called the game against Stroud, and they just did everything that they could. That game was over about 15 minutes into the contest. So Hooker's done a great job to get to the finals this season. They're really young. I think they're going to be around for a couple of seasons. I don't think they're finished winning a bunch of playoff games, but I think that Fairview will win this one. Certainly expects to be closer than the last two times they met.
Mark, are you calling the game for the network this weekend?
Yes.
So
yes.
Mark will be on the live call, NFHS Network as well. So Squirtle people all the way around here. Coach Tyler, what are you thinking in this one?
I got to watch both games last week. Watch Hooker and Hammond a little bit, and the Fairview Woodland game. I thought both teams looked really good. I thought Hooker, like I said, defensively is playing pretty good right now. Got to watch them play Central the week before, and they kind of dominated that game from the get-go. And sounds like they're playing pretty good right now. Fairview, though, I think they're on another level. Obviously, playing them in the finals last year, even though they graduated a lot of guys, it seems like Coach Bernard, they just reloaded, and they're getting after it again this year. And watched them play last week, and I thought they looked really, really good, against Woodland. And, I think they're going to be the favorite again Saturday afternoon at 1:00. I think they're ready to roll again and going to go back to back.
Hey, make sure Tom knows what time that game is. It's in the afternoon.
Yes, 1:00.
Yeah, not 1:30.
Yeah.
Brian Smith?
Everybody talks about the Fairview offense, and rightfully so. Jackson Bernard throws a great deep ball. They beat Hooker by 32 back in week 3. But one thing that gets, I think, overlooked is the Fairview defense. Defensive line, they rotate a lot of different guys there on the front level. Also, their linebacker core with Gilchrist, Miller, Wheeler, and Burris, very talented. Fairview has stepped up and became a dominant program in Class A, and I don't think that's going to change as we go into this game. I do think Hooker has improved a lot since back in week 3, but overcoming that loss, I just feel like Fairview's a team, and I think Fairview by 17 is my pick.
Yeah, 10 in a row since that loss back in week 3 for the Bulldogs. And, among those, winning at Minco. I know that surprised a lot of people. Pretty impressive there. Obviously last week surprised a lot of people by knocking off Hominy, which I think some people thought maybe had a chance to win the gold ball. So Hooker just really put an impressive run together here in these last 10 weeks. Coach Shackelford, what are you thinking?
I think I probably am part of the reason why a lot of people in Hooker have a chip on their shoulder. I think I picked them to get beat pretty bad last week and maybe even the second round of the playoffs. But I'll say this for Trevor and the job that he's done there this year. I think it's been really good. They played Thomas, or especially in the playoffs, that he's done a great job. And they played Thomas week 10, and I think they won 21-7. And then, their road through the playoffs, they had to go to Minko and win, who I thought had every piece of the puzzle you needed to try to win a state championship. And they, got on the bus and went there and won, and then, played Hominy in the semifinals, who has as much talent as anybody in Class A. So I'm sure they're feeling pretty good about themselves. Defensively, they've been playing pretty well. They were really opportunistic last week. I think they had a pick six early on that probably, gave their kids some momentum and some thought that they could go pull off the upset, and then they went and did it. I think the problem they're going to run into on Saturday afternoon is they're facing a matchup for them that's probably not great, or at least it wasn't week 3. So it'll be really interesting to see what adjustments Coach Powers makes. I think Jack's had over 300 yards passing in the first half when they played early in the year. So it'll be interesting to see if he makes any adjustments to try to take that away and try to make Fairview do something besides just see if Burris can run by everybody. So, but the thing about high school football, especially 4 months after you start, is if you can get to this point with a bunch of high school kids and they think they got a chance to win, you got a puncher's chance on Saturday afternoon. But and I think it's awesome. First time Hooker's ever been in the state finals. I think both Fairview and Hooker are having some monster tailgates, that are going to be live streamed, and there'll be 1,000 handlers in Edmond on Saturday afternoon. So the atmosphere will probably be really cool. So hats off to Hooker, but I think at the end of the day, Fairview's they're just too good, and I've been a little bit of a doubter of them throughout the playoffs. I thought Stroud could have beat them. I thought Woodland would have played them a lot closer, but they just kind of find a way each week. And outside of the Crescent game, and you take away a couple of turnovers in the Crescent game, and that one's not as close as the score looks. So they've kind of cleaned some of that stuff up. And I'm kind of like Coach Smith. I think it'll be closer than the first time, but I'll be surprised if any of the Jacket faithfuls, especially Andy, are sweating a lot on Saturday. I think Fairview pulls it out.
Andy's going to see that Disney World deal, and he'll be sweating quite a bit.
He'll be sweating a lot. Yep.
Did you say 1,000 handles in
panhandlers?
Oh, I got you.
There might be 1,000 handles too, but there'll be a lot of panhandlers there.
All right, Coach Jones, wrap us up here.
First of all, hats off to Coach Powers. Known him for a few years. Got to compete against him in some 7-on-7. Always been impressed with just the way he coaches kids, gets them motivated and fired up. And one thing you have to account for is sometimes there's the Cinderella story in the team of destiny, and obviously they've done what they needed to do to get to this point and have a chance to win a state championship. And again, that's got to be commended. And they're going to have to play really well. And I agree with Coach Smith. When you come back and I know that Fairview is known for their offense, but the few times that I've seen them this year was able to call the game. So impressed with their defense. I think they play really well up front on both sides of the ball, but really how disciplined they play in their approach defensively. I think they've got really good safety in the Strader kid that can just really fly and play sideline to sideline. And that I think defense wins championships. And at the same time, equally impressed with Jax Bernard and the offense that Coach Bernard runs and has schemed up and developed there. They're going to stress Hooker sideline to sideline and goal line to goal line. And so it's a huge challenge for Hooker. Again, I think state championship experience in Moxie matter. And so my pick's going to be Fairview. I think it'll be a close game, but I think Fairview wins this on the back of Jax Bernard and the Fairview defense.
Say fairly unanimous there, everybody thinking the Yellow Jackets are going to repeat. Time for the final state championship game of 2023, and it's a rematch of a different sort, a rematch of last year's title game, as it is Washington, the defending champion, getting Millwood in the title game. That's going to be 7 p.m. at Chad Richardson Stadium. And, these two teams are very proud. This is Washington, I think, fourth straight trip to the title game. Millwood, 7 titles. They've been there 11 times before. No stranger to it. Of course, Shackelford so close to getting that Kiefer pick right last week, just one kick away from getting it. Jaden Nickens pulled the rabbit out of the hat on the very last play of the game, returned the kickoff for a touchdown to lift the Falcons into the championship. So Shaq, I'll start with you on this one. Can Millwood pull off another? This one would be definitely considered an upset if they could find a way to knock off Washington.
Yeah, I mean, I think Millwood's they've got a puncher's chance just because they've got some freaks, and you saw, if you watched any of the Kiefer game last week, I mean, you saw what some of those kids can do when they get the ball in their hands. So I'm sure Coach Beller is nervous. I think anytime you play a team that's got as many athletes as Millwood does, and won't be scared of the moment at all. I think, didn't the Nixon kid hit the 3 in the corner when he was a freshman to win a state championship for him in basketball? So, I don't think Millwood will be worried about playing Washington. They played them last year. It was close. I mean, Millwood had opportunities to win, so I'm sure that they have all the confidence in the world. But I think they've got their hands full in Washington. We can sit here and talk about Bixby and how impressive it is that they've won 6 state titles and been to the finals so many times, but to go to the finals 4 times in a row in Class 2A when you're a small school is incredible. Whether you win it or not, just getting there that many times and making it through that many football games. I mean, this is going to be what for Coach Beller? I mean, they're 60-something game in 4 years. I mean, something just 60. What is it?
It's their 60th.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy. To be able to play that much and have to practice that much and get through all that and keep your kids where they're they can make it through all that. So hats off to them and Washington for being able to do that. I mean, we did it 3 years in a row and it felt like 7 years worth of football. So that's pretty impressive. But I think at the end of the day, I think Washington's got too many of the right pieces to the puzzle. I think they're really great up front on both sides of the football. And I think defensively, Justin's probably going to echo this because he's an old defensive coach. But I think defensively is where Washington's better. And I think that will probably be the difference on Saturday night. So I'm gonna take the Warriors in a close one. And by the way, I was close on Jones too. Didn't I pick them last week?
No, you said the game was going to be closer. I don't think you. Also, Chance Davis is the game-winning 3-point shooter against. Yeah, but that's all right. I mean, that's still good knowledge. Basketball is not your forte there, but I think the Nickens kick return definitely goes up there in Millwood history with that shot.
Yeah, no, that's insane. I'm really good friends with Trent, and I'm not going to call Trent or text Trent for a while. So. Because I wouldn't want anybody talking to me. But I think Washington pulls it out. I think it'll be a great game. I mean, I think all 3 games Saturday would be awesome. So if you could, post up in the greater Oklahoma City area on Saturday, I think you'll watch 3 really incredible small school football games.
And those 3 years felt like 7 years, but you didn't age a day. So
no.
So Coach Jones, I'll kick it to you next and see what you have to say about this one.
This was a tough one. It's a tough one just because I know both coaching staffs very well. I think both teams are going to be well coached. I think obviously it's the same song, different dance. I think for Washington, they've been there time and time again. But I think there's an incredible chip on Millwood's shoulder. I think they've had 364 days of understanding what 17-14 meant in the opportunities that they had slip away. One of the things that Coach Franklin is incredibly good at is the way that he motivates a team, and he hasn't let that get out of sight for them. You look at 2 teams coming in with really close wins, really probably surprised, I think, a lot of people going into this game. And, you look at a rematch, and really you talk about state championship experience, but both teams have it. I think Washington's got some new players in that maybe experience it for the first time. But I also look at just the amount of firepower and big-time playmakers on both teams. And I think in this game, it's going to take an incredible effort from a guy like Jaden Nickens to make some, incredible plays. On the other hand, when you look at Washington with the tight end personnel that they have, and Nate Roberts and Alexander kid, both incredible and phenomenal football players. But the guy that really makes Washington tick is the quarterback, and I think this is his 45th game, probably that he's been at the helm. Been in some big games. I thought he was one that really solidified their comeback last year and really put them in a great position. Coach Colbert does a great job on defense. On the other hand, it's you're not going to beat Millwood with speed, and I'm really impressed with Millwood and their discipline and their approach. I think this is going to be probably a game like the Stillwater Muskogee game. I really think this is a close game. It's hard for me to pick. I'm going to go with Millwood in this game just by an edge. I think that when you look at how close Millwood was with the return there, if he puts a hill down, he's out of bounds and probably game over. But again, you look at some destiny and some things like this. I think these two teams have been on a collision course for this game. I think you get one team that is used to being there, the other team that's highly motivated to get some redemption. So I'm going to go with Millwood in the game.
Split vote so far. Coach Brian Smith, break the tie.
Well, it's a little bit tough for me because I've been picking Millwood about every week. I've been picking Washington every week. Coach Beller, know him well, and I kind of pull for him. You wonder if the Millwood win last week, is that something that's going to catapult them this week, or is that something that they are maybe having a hard time getting, moving on from it? Maybe they celebrated it too much. I don't know. That's something they'll work out on their own. I have a hard time picking this, but I'm going to stick with Washington. I think they're the better team. I think that Kiefer had Millwood beat. Obviously, a great play by Millwood on that kickoff return. But I'm going to go with Washington on this one.
Coach Tyler.
Rematch from last year. It was definitely a great ball game between those two teams. And kind of like Coach Jones said, it's going to come down to who's going to be the most disciplined team. Who's going to be able to take care of the football, turnovers, etc. Play great defense. Kicking game may be a big part of it. Obviously, last week, Millwood won the one on the kickoff return there, and I'm kind of like Trent very well, and I haven't called or texted him yet either, so I'm sure he's not feeling very well yet. But Coach Beller in Washington, what they've done, the last 4 years, had a chance to beat Marlowe. They're very close to winning 3 in a row. The kids going in there at the 10 and they fumble going in against Marlowe 3 years ago. They had a chance to win that one. So, they did a tremendous job of Washington. But, the last couple of weeks, Washington played Vian. Vian's inside of 20 3 or 4 times and don't score, and had some chance to put some points on the board. They gave up a lot of points last week to Jones. They're going to be able to correct their problems defensively. Like Coach Jones said, Coach K does a great job on that side of the ball. But still, Washington is the team to beat, and I think they're going to repeat as well. So go with the Warriors again.
Mark.
I think it'll be really close. I can't remember going back to 2A championship games if there's as much next level talent on the field as there will be in this one. I don't know that there's ever been. With the tight ends at Washington, Cameron Carter, I love him. I'm not sure what his recruiting situation is, but he's a junior. I think that he's going to be a next level player. Miko Levine is going to North Texas. Jaden Nickens going to Oklahoma. And so just this game to me is the best game of the weekend. I'll go with Washington, but I think that, again, it could go either way. And I think Millwood, that they really have nothing to lose after last week's game. And so I think definitely we'll have a lot of motivation in this game. You're going to have a great atmosphere with the Millwood band, which is off the charts, as good as it's a championship product also. So can't wait for the game on Saturday night in prime time. It'll be a good one.
All right, Tom, go ahead and repeat all the stats everybody else has already given us.
Yeah, I'm bringing up the rear on this one. Well, I think we saw a lot from Washington last week. We've been talking about them all year long, blowing everybody out. But boy, they're down 18-0 in the first half and scored 28 straight points, convert a big 4th and short with a minute to go to seal the 35-34 win. That's kind of a gut check they're going to need going into a game like this because Millwood is going to be tough. And of course, we know about Millwood's close call with the kickoff return at the buzzer to win 34-29. Third championship matchup between these two teams. Millwood won 42-7 in 2017, and of course the Washington win last year. And Mark mentioned the talent all over the field. I looked in his magazine. 7 preseason top 100 players are going to be on the field in this ball game. And I said last week I was going to ride the Warriors all the way to the final stop. And while this is the toughest call, I'm going to stay on the train and go Washington.
So there you have it. Majority going with the Warriors to get the repeat. Tom, just since you again made that extra trip to the buffet, and we're late, anything from last weekend that jumped out at you? We quickly just ran through last week's title games. Anything that jumped out at you, surprised you? You're happy to see, sad to see?
I was happy to see Muskogee, the way they won, getting that state championship. I didn't realize this. I've only lived in Oklahoma for 20 years and did not realize 11 state titles that they have. They hadn't won one since '86, but they're a powerhouse back in the day. But it took them a while to get that 11th one. So, they had to. That game came down to the last 20 seconds as well. Expected Carl Albert to do what they did. How about Blanchard? I think that was the biggest championship surprise. The weather delay game got over around midnight, and they had a big defensive stop to end that ball game with Wagner in the red zone on that. And then Tipton just doing what Tipton does now, 28 straight wins and back-to-back state titles and 7 of the last 12 titles in Class C. So they got a freshman quarterback too, and a junior running back who led him. Johnny Fernandez had over 200 yards rushing. So they're just going to reload and be back in that same mix next year in Class C. But yeah, it was fun stuff.
It is, yeah. It's going to be windy this weekend. You guys, anybody see that playing a factor in any of the games, or what the teams do? Do you think it'll be fine with what they do on the field?
I'd imagine the afternoon games will be windier than the night games, the way it usually works in Oklahoma. So yeah, that Fairview Hooker game, Fairview's going to throw it all over the place.
I'm sure the wind's blowing in Fairview and Hooker a little bit this year, so they might be used to it.
Yeah, maybe just a skosh.
It's not like Miami or Southall.
If it's from the south, you got that big scoreboard on the south end to block it, but probably from the north. But
all right, so again, 7 p.m. Saturday at Southern Nazarene, we've got the Class B championship game, Velma, Alma, and Sealing. Saturday, both title games at
Friday
Stadium.
Friday night, yeah.
What'd I say?
8-man Friday. You said Saturday.
Did I say Saturday? Okay, it's Friday night. Yes, my apologies. And then Saturday, we're over at UCO, 1 o'clock and 7 o'clock, Class A, then Class 2A. Should be a great weekend of football to wrap things up here in Oklahoma for 2023. Speaking of
one thing,
up,
we got to wish Andy the best, and hopefully he can get over his vertigo. From teacups.
Those teacups, man, they'll get the faint ones. And
yeah, he may have drank around the world at Epcot too, so that could be it could be laid out with fish and chips in England right now. Who knows?
Yeah. So, get well soon.
Beer Germany's pretty solid.
Get well soon, Andy. Don't have to see you again until 2024 here on the Pay Dirt Pick'em Show. I want to thank our great panel again, Coach Justin Jones, Lynn Shackelford, Brian Smith, Brandon Tyler, then Mark Rogers joining us, and Tom, even you for hopping on late.
Better late than never, I guess, right?
Yeah, save the best for last, however you want to put it. And just a reminder again, you can listen to Tom and Adam Dieselhorse on the Gamecast, the audio version of the Class A title game on Saturday on all of the Scorebook platforms, so be sure to do that. Should be able to catch that replay as well. And again, Mark is calling the game for the NFHS network. I want to thank you guys again.
He's got the high-end broadcast. You got to pay for him.
He is the Mark Rogers, so he's got the big voice guy that says his name. So you get that stuff right there. But thanks again, you guys, for joining us, and thank you guys for watching. We'll see you